Welcome back. It is a trade deadline edition of the Rose Tackle Football Show. I'm your host, Michael, here with Brother John. Brother John, how's it going?
It's good. It was it was somewhat exciting early on, but I would say, the league blew itself early a little bit, but
I don't know. It was pretty exciting. It was a pretty exciting day. Yeah, we definitely peaked a little earlier than we thought we would. A little nod to that in my jersey today. I'm wearing an ode to the NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets Glenn Rice jersey, a guy that was traded 5 times in his career, 3 times in his prime. So apropos of what we're doing here today, let's get down to it because we got a lot to cover here. So just real quick, we can review. There were a couple huge matchups that happened this week. None closer or more frustrating, I think. Well, more frustrating for the loser than Brendan versus football and stuff. That was rough.
it was a rough loss there. And, it was, I think, even more rough for Bears fans, but, needing 200 yards out of the Bears offense is never a gimme. So, Brendan, that's a rough feeling right there.
I think when you're counting on any sort of production there, you're in trouble no matter what. And obviously, it didn't come through. That was a horrible Monday night game, and I really hope it's. I haven't looked ahead at the Bears' schedule. I hope we're not in prime time. I have a feeling we probably are at least one other time.
Yeah, we're playing
this
Green
year.
Bay
Do we play Green?
still. We still play Green Bay
so
twice,
I would
and
imagine
that's definitely going to be prime time.
Yeah, I would imagine one of those are in prime time. So that's rough. Because to be honest, nobody deserves to have to watch the Bears in prime time.
It's painful.
Least of all, it really is. Least of all Bears fans. But yes, Fitz losing by less than 1 point to Charlie. This isn't a devastating loss to Fitz. Fitz is going to make the playoffs. He'll be in fine shape. He's not going to get a bye by any means, I would imagine, but I think he'll be okay. For Charlie, it was a must-win game, and he pulled through. So we'll see what happens. There were 2 other games I just want to top line real quick before we move on to the trade stuff. So one was the Hollow Earthers absolute fiasco matchup, which was almost as close, believe it or not, as the Fitz Charlie matchup, just in a completely different direction. 2 teams that put up a paltry amount of points. Kelly took the win though, and it was a big loss for Bill. A win that Kelly really needed to have, and she's clawed her way back into playoff contention, but Bill needed to win this game.
Yep, and going out and trading for James Conner there for Conner to only put up 5.8 points is heartbreaking. And whenever you go out and trade for a player, you never want to see them put up a dud quite like that. So he has to be questioning his decision. So, we'll get into that a little bit later about all the trade breakdowns. But just paltry showing from every player except for Hopkins on his team. So
essentially, yeah, except for his best player. The only thing that cushions the loss for Bill was perhaps, and I texted Pete this earlier today, I think. This was one of the most demoralizing losses in my fantasy football career. I've been playing fantasy football for about 15 years now, and this one stung. It stung in ways that other ones don't sting, even playoff losses. It was close enough that for a while I thought I had a shot to win. What made it really hurt was the fact that Jimmy Graham didn't put up any points on Monday night. So had one of my other players showed up, it would have been fine. Had Michael Thomas just showed up, I would have won.
Yeah, I mean, with Drew Brees going down, are you still confident in Thomas? Or
I
is
mean,
that
it can't get any worse than it is right now.
that's
So
true?
I'm not like, I feel about the same, right? We'll get into that later. Well, we can talk about that later. But the loss here definitely helps Bill. Keeps him in the lead in the division. Bill compared us to the NFC East, which I think is pretty accurate.
Spot on.
We're the only division without a team that's above 500. I know, the Dicka division only has one team above 500. The other teams are at 500, and I think they're actually a pretty competitive division in there. Yeah, it's a pretty poor division. We're not
It's not
very
great. I
competitive.
mean, as far as playoff picture goes, you only have one team in the playoffs, and that team is the 6th seed right now. So
Yeah,
I would
for
say
sure.
that's probably, I mean, that's certainly the worst showing as far as if you judge it on that metric at least. And so,
For sure. All right. Well, let's move on. News and notes real quick. Nothing big happened on the waiver wire this week. Around the NFL, I think the major news was the Drew Brees injury, which makes sense. That's going to really hurt that parts of that New Orleans offense, but really the only part of that offense that matters in terms of fantasy is the Alvin Kamara piece, and I don't think that affects him whatsoever.
no, he did just fine last year when Teddy came in, and
Yeah.
so just how well he's used. And the only thing you could see is if Winston, assuming he's the starter, doesn't check down as much and throws more picks. But I guess the more picks you throw, the more, or at least pick sixes, the more opportunities you get on offense there. So I don't think that they're going to be letting Winston throw all over the field, though. So Sean Payton is a much different coach than Bruce Arians. So.
I think this version of Jameis Winston's going to be so. If you look at what they did with Teddy Bridgewater last year, right? Teddy Bridgewater was basically playing like Drew Brees plays, and so I would imagine they're going to ask Jameis Winston to do something pretty similar. I don't know, as of yesterday, I know they hadn't, and I don't think I saw anything this morning that they had named Jameis the starter. I would imagine he's going to start. Hill starting would be, I don't know, that would be kind of fucking mind-boggling, to be honest with you.
He's not a good quarterback.
Yeah.
And, are you, so just real quick on that, I've heard multiple different things reading online. Do you think they're still going to use Taysom Hill as much as they have been, or in the same way? Or do you think that they're going to reserve him because if Winston goes down, or if, let's say, Taysom Hill gets injured on a run play and then it's just Winston, which then they wouldn't have an actual backup, right? So
they don't really have an actual backup right now to Winston. Yeah. I don't think Taysom Hill is an answer at quarterback. So
no.
I think they probably continue to use Taysom Hill in the way that he's being used. And see what happens. I'm sure they'll sign.
Are you out on like Sanders? You're out on everyone. Are you out Mike Thomas?
No, I'm not out of Mike Thomas.
Okay.
Let's get to it. So, trade deadline happened this week. It happened today. We are a few hours removed from it. It was a busy deadline.
Very.
In the first year of the league, a lot of cash changed hands. And so how we're going to do this, I think we'll go through we won't hit every trade, but we're gonna each pick 2 winners from the trade deadline, 2 losers from the trade deadline, and we'll talk about kind of some philosophy on the whole of what teams we're doing. So let's get to it. John, I'm going to pull up here not the trade deadline results, but the trade tracker. So we will send out this updated version of the spreadsheet tomorrow. It includes every trade that was made this year, the cash that changed hands. It also includes a trade result tab that shows you exactly how much money teams lost or gained and their impact on the 2021 draft, as well as some impact players that were brought in by each team. John, do you want to start? You want to tell me who your 2 winners are, who your 2 losers are?
Yeah. I mean,
which one? I mean, what do you want to start with? You want to start with winners or losers?
Let's start with the winners.
All right, let's start positive.
I think it's let's end on a bad note.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
As Rose family functions tend to do, right?
What is this? Grandma's funeral? Let's get this started.
All right. I think it's like pretty clear. Person who went out and spent the most money, or I believe it was the most money, also pulled in, I think, the top talent and solidified his lineup, and that's going to have to be the Alpha Peters, right? Spent $24, brought in Alvin Kamara and Tyreek Hill. Mark Andrews, yeah, sure, he's probably the second best tight end playing right now, but that's a far cry from number 1. And just bringing in Kamara and Tyreek Hill solidifies his lineup, and he's far and away the odds-on favorite at this point, for me at least. With Nick Chubb coming back and hopefully if Chris Carson comes back, he is going to have a 3-headed monster in the running game, and then with Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson, and then your boom and bust Tyler Lockett too. It's he's not going to be able to play all these guys, but his injury insurance is by far better than anyone's.
Yeah, I'd agree. Peter obviously wanted to go out and spend money and improve his position for this year. He saw, he was the league leader in points coming into this week, coming into last week. He's had the best record in the league for a few weeks now, and he went out and made his team better. Getting Alvin Kamara, getting Tyreek Hill, 2 impact players at both their positions that basically, solidify those positions on his team. Let's talk for a minute about the situation that occurred with the Alvin Kamara, Julio Jones trade that was originally brought forward. I was as shocked as anybody to see that trade. I think the main takeaway for me was, and this is something I said to Sullivan, I wouldn't trade my 2 best players in a package deal, really no matter what I was offered. I don't think there's any way you get comparable value to trading them separately as you do to trading them together, right? They're always going to be worth more separately than they are together, because another team's always going to be able to offer you more for the other guy. So that was my big problem with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think just the value itself was lower. I mean, Alpha Peter went out and paid $10 for Tyreek Hill, who's a better receiver than Julio Jones.
Yeah.
And if he had put that,
wait, what?
I think and from a fantasy standpoint, Tyreek Hill is putting up better numbers than Julio Jones right now.
I mean, right now.
I mean, over the season, sure, yeah, over the season. I mean, he scored more touchdowns. He's more touchdowns and is on a better offense.
All right.
Personally, but yeah, it's close, right? It's close. I think Tyreek Hill's better, not like astronomically better, but better.
Yeah,
For
but
fantasy.
he had to spend double the money to get him, right?
Yeah, if if he
which
had
is the
included
point.
that $10 in the original trade and it was $22 anti Higgins and Burrow, then that would have made more sense to me.
So here's what I'm taking away from this, right? So Peter makes this trade, both Peters make this trade. It's the 1st trade with draft money involved, and so if the argument was the reason I think it was fine to let it go is they were setting the floor or the ceiling, whatever it was, for what those types of trades were going to be in terms of the amount of money that was being offered. If you look at the other trades around then, right, premium players started to go then for about 10, 8, 12, $11, right? So even Joe Mixon goes for $8. Tyreek Hill goes for 10. James Conner, he gets him for 12. Miles Sanders, you got for 11. That's a fucking steal.
Miles Sanders is pretty good. I mean, we'll see. But
even Mike Evans at 9, I think, is informed by that value there.
For sure.
They kind of set the tempo with that trade for what was going to be happening.
No, the interesting part is also you have to remember, that I think Higgins is a quality keeper. I think that's someone going forward that, like, if he was on my team, I would keep, right? Burrow, that's personal opinion, whether you keep him or not for that $10.5, $11, whatever it is next year. Now, I think there'll be plenty of good quarterbacks that are going to go in that $6, $7 range that we saw this past year. That are comparable to Burrow, but that's personal opinion. But $12 plus Higgins, a good asset. I think that sort of set that floor for me on what I'm looking for. But we really didn't see anyone else that are selling off. To
the extent
RB1 or wide receiver 1 assets. And like I was trying to get a running back. Like
there are no running
for Miles Sanders. For Miles Sanders, what I would have liked would have been like a Myles Gaskin and like $4 or $5.
Yeah.
Or so like someone of like that, like a rookie running back that I could keep for $4 or $5. Kelly and I were talking about Ronald Jones. And some cash, but it's Bruce Arians. It's way too uncertain to know whether he likes the guy or not. So
yep, for sure. Okay,
but we didn't really see anything like that else, though. We didn't see any other assets plus cash for a piece this year, right?
For sure. Okay, so Alpha Peters, your first winner of the trade deadline. I'm going to go, just to sort of the yin and the yang here. I'm going to go with the average Peters as a winner at this trade deadline. He came away with an ungodly sum of money, way more, than any other team. $36 he added to his draft money for next year. Say what you will about the average Peters decision to sell off. I don't think it's something I would have done. I think he had a pretty competitive team, and he is still in it right now. He's 5-5. He beat me this week. He's one spot out of the playoffs at this point. But you can't deny the fact that next year going into the draft, he's going to have a significant advantage over everybody. So,
That's true.
I mean, that's a lot of money to burn.
Definitely. And he's still the fourth highest point scorer on the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, I mean, he committed to deconstructing his team. He deconstructed it. He sold off his best players, and he got pretty good value for him. So I don't think there's much of an argument as to that. Do you have a different winner in there as well?
I was going to go Average Peters.
I've got
for
one
that
more.
value as
Okay.
well. Now, I also really do. I do like Ken's pickups. Thoughts and prayers. I thought he did a pretty good job there of getting good value for his money. I think $5 for Jacobs, $3 for Mahomes. I think and didn't give up too much, and held on to some good future pieces that he'll be able to work around, despite not having that $8. Granted, Josh Jacobs has been playing hurt all year. We're not really sure what's gonna happen in the future with him. And Mahomes, like we've talked about with when we were breaking down Alex's team a few weeks ago. You get like 2.5 quarters right now of Mahomes, unless it's a more competitive game, which is not as often as one would hope for fantasy purposes. But
yeah, I mean, Ken obviously I think goes into this as kind of a second fiddle to the Alpha Peters team. I think his team stacks up pretty well against them. His bench obviously isn't as strong as Peter Kramer's, but his starting lineup is right there with it.
Yeah.
The Duke
Totally.
Johnson in for David Johnson thing, that hurts. I assume Kenyon Drake is the guy that you hope gets a few more carries. I don't know. I mean, if I were him, I might take a shot on Kenyon Drake this week against that Seattle defense. But
for sure.
I think this is definitely a team that matches up pretty well. To your point, though, right? Josh Jacobs has been up and down a little bit this year, but he's been fairly consistent the last few weeks, and so.
Yeah, I mean, 31 attempts, 14 attempts, 21 attempts. I think it kind of depends. And I mean, know
he
that
gets
he
the
has
ball.
hip injuries. Yeah, he has a hip injury right now, and so.
Yeah, but he plays. He gets the ball.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you just
I don't think there's. I understand.
Yeah, and then as far as the rest, he does have kind of a boomer bust team at the moment. DK Metcalf, if he's getting number one, the number one cornerback on the other team, he can have off days, right? Robert Woods has not been consistent, but
I don't know if it's fair to characterize DK Metcalf as boomer bust. He's had 2 bad weeks.
2 of the last 4, and I think
okay, 2 of the last 4, but
in Arizona, he's gonna have some tough
2
coverage.
out of his 9 weeks have not been great, right?
Yeah,
2 out of his 9 weeks.
They've
been the weeks that he's been the least targeted, and I think he's a pretty consistent guy that's going to get you some points.
We'll see. But to the point where I think some of his other guys have had, Robert Woods has been less consistent this year than in years past.
Sure.
I'm not going to label Ken. I labeled Ken as a winner of the trade deadline. But if I had a third loser to pick, I would pick Ken, because Calvin Ridley and $10 for Alvin Kamara and Julio Jones. How do you not make that trade? How do you not say yes to that?
Yeah, that's a trade that should have gone through. That was one that got thrown out there by Peter during the whole controversy.
Well, he said he offered that to Ken
Yeah, no, I
before
know,
he
I
offered it
know.
to Alpha Peter.
I'm aware, and I think that's a trade you make. But Ken's
10
looking
times out of 10 and twice on Sunday.
Keeping Calvin Ridley, I guess, next year. But for $29, I think you get rid of him and try to win the title this year.
Oh,
with
easily.
those two guys.
Yes.
So we'll see.
Oh my God.
All
Yeah.
right. So my other winner actually is Wings and Pizza. So you and Josh, I think, had comparable sell-offs. The biggest difference for me is that Josh brought in a player I really like, DJ Shark, who I know he's had his up and down weeks, but he's a young receiver who I think is gonna really excel. And alongside that, Josh brought in quite a bit of cap money, $22 off quite a few moves, and I think he's found himself in a good spot for next year. So that would be my second.
Oh
winner.
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he held on to some great pieces too. And if you're looking at keeping DeAndre Swift or and DJ Shark and maybe one other guy. Not really seeing, besides maybe Fulgham, but he's been kind of bounced around the league. And is he as good as
Are you
he
talking
would be?
about who you keep?
Yeah,
I
think
off this
Swift
team?
and Shark are the ones.
So Swift, you definitely keep. Shark, you definitely keep. The keeper deadline isn't until 2 weeks before the draft, right?
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
there's plenty of room.
So you got a lot of time. You see what Chase Edmonds, I think, is a pretty valuable piece. So you see what happens to that backfield. I don't know what Kenyon Drake's contract situation is next year, but Kenyon Drake is. Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in that guy. Chase Edmonds, younger, I think inspires some confidence there. Who else is on here that might get?
Kittle at it was, I think, $40.
Yeah, Kittle at $40 is hard to keep.
I mean,
maybe you do.
Maybe you do.
He's got enough money to offset it. So
yeah, that's what I'm
maybe
thinking.
You just do it. You sign
Which
him to
that was a
one-year
piece
deal.
that he got off with Alpha Peter. That was a piece that Steve demanded.
So that Josh demanded.
Josh demanded to get out of Peter to make that trade happen.
For sure.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was a pretty good move.
All right.
We'll see. I think that was a good winner.
What about losers? You got some losers for this trade deadline?
Yeah, I think. I'm looking at it. It's hard to say who's actually going to be a loser, but there are players that I have questions about. Mainly James Conner. He has not looked really great this year. And then there's other players, frankly, players that I traded away that just had big question marks around them. So, you could look at the Blue Barracudas, but I've questioned him once and will never again question him.
Okay.
So, well, I'm going to go ahead and say, build James Conner for $12. It's a steep price.
Yeah, I think that's a move Bill regrets. $12 for James Conner is tough for sure. That was always going to be the risk of being in early and making these moves early, right? Letting the market set itself. I think it took a little bit of shock to let those prices come down when people realized how much money people were spending. I agree with you. Bill's team is definitely one of my trade deadline losers. He didn't improve himself, really. I mean, he improved himself a little bit with James Conner, but at the cost value, I don't think he improved himself enough to make himself competitive in the playoffs. And I'll tell you, as a division rival who decided not to make any moves after a day-long discussions with quite a few people, including Bill, about moving Michael Thomas and Zeke. One of the things that factored in to my standing pat is the fact that Bill plays the average Peters this week, which, is a game that Bill should win. Bill and I then play each other in week 12. And I think it's going to be a toss-up. It's going to be a close matchup, depending on what's going on with Michael Thomas and Zeke Elliott.
Who are you playing this week?
Who
are you playing this week?
Oh, so this week I play Kelly, which is going to be a tough game for me. But I think I have a shot. We'll see. It's an outside shot, and I need to win it. Bill, just to keep everybody abreast, again, plays the average Peters, which is a game he should win.
But that would tie you, or if Bill wins, so you guys are in the same spot, right? He's 6-5, you're 5-6. If you both win this coming week.
Yeah, we both need to win this coming week, or I need to win this coming week. Yep. I need to win out essentially. I play Bill in week 12. And we'll see what happens there.
If you win that game, then you guys would both be you'd be tied with him.
Yes,
and have the tiebreaker.
The big thing is that in week 13, I play Josh's team, and Bill plays the Alpha Peters, and that was a big selling point to me.
That is a big one, but Peter is he's a crafty manager, and he may have the playoffs already locked up, so he might rest his guys that week. And
okay, well, anti-competitive behavior is not going to be tolerated in this league. So
it's not anti-competitive. It's you always rest your guys before the playoffs, Mike.
I would say it's anti-competitive. But who's he going to rest? He's going to rest his wide receiver 1 to play his wide receiver 1B.
That's the issue. Is he puts in all his subs, he's still got a top 5 team.
I think we're okay. So that was the calculation that went into me standing pat. We'll see what happens. I'm not.
I think it's a good move to stand pat. I think I wouldn't label you a winner because you didn't really make any moves, but you're certainly not a loser for not making moves. At $200, you're right in the middle of the pack as far as draft capital for next year, and you retain pieces that are still valuable that you might be able to move in the offseason for a couple extra bucks.
Possible. The players that I looking at my team that I'm interested in keeping are guys like Deontay Johnson, guys like Brandon Ayaku, and then from there, Keenan Allen, I spent 16 bucks on. $16 for Keenan Allen is a bit of a bargain. So he's definitely somebody, if I don't keep, I'd be looking to trade in the off season for some money. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Enough about my team. My loser, we can just pick one loser each. So you chose Bill's team. I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose Steve's team. Much maligned at one point on this podcast, I think Steve's team has gotten its due. The Blue Barracudas are definitely one of the best teams in the league. However, not through really no fault of their own, the Blue Barracudas lost a step in this trade deadline season, and they're pretty well behind now. I think both thoughts and prayers and the Alpha Peters. And so that, he came out of this, the marquee player that Steve brought in was Joe Mixon, who I think is, one of the most questionable running backs that was on the market. He's been hurt. And when he plays, he's great for the most part, but he's been hurt for quite a while now. And so we'll see what happens. I think, actually, I don't think he practiced.
No, I don't think so again.
Yeah, Joe
But,
Mixon missed practice today. So
it's Wednesday, so but
we'll
I
see.
do agree. But if he gets back out there, which he has come back from injury and played well in years past.
Yeah.
Looking at his schedule, outside of Pittsburgh and in week 15, if he misses this week, he comes back to the Giants, Miami, Dallas, Pittsburgh, and then Houston if Steve mixes the championship. Those are all pretty good matchups for Joe Mixon.
For sure.
And so that's why packaging Giovanni Bernard, even though he had a bit of a down game this last week, generally is a workhorse, and so
For sure.
that helps a little bit. But I agree with you. I think Mixon is a frustrating person to own.
Well,
that comes from someone who's owned him every year for the last 4 years.
Well, on that note, I think we'll end the trade discussion there. It was a hell of a trade deadline. There were some big pieces moved. I can't wait to see how this all plays out in the off season and to see how it plays out in next year's auction. So we'll see. Let's move in to the preview of the week. We don't have a lot here. I think we can just do a quick Survivor update.
Yeah.
John, you chose Ken as the team, the prognosticator. The prognosticator chose Ken as the team that you expected to be voted off the island. You were dead wrong in that.
Yet again.
Ken didn't put up a ton of points, but put up enough points to beat you and to beat Steve, who was ultimately voted off the island. At 71.42 points. Steve joins us on the life raft, the diving board out in the middle of the sea with the beer.
It's getting pretty full.
Yeah. So there's two teams left. We will know who the winner of this contest is the next time we do this show. And it's down to Ken and the Alpha Peters. Really the two best teams in the league, I think, which is nice to see. So who are you taking to win?
Let's see. I've chosen Ken 2 times.
You've chosen him
to lose.
You've chosen him twice, and it didn't work out.
Third time's the charm, though. I'm gonna go ahead and choose the Alpha Peters, which maybe I should choose Alpha Peters to lose. And then Ken will actually lose. So maybe it's kind of this thing. But one thing to note, and I brought this up to you earlier, but Peter has a chance to, and rightfully Ken does too at this point, to win the triple crown of sorts, which would be Survivor, winner, league's best record of the regular season, and then the championship. So win all three would be pretty impressive. I
think they both have a chance for the quadruple crown, which would be points in there as well, especially the Alpha Peters.
Looking at this points now. Peter's only 20 points ahead of Ken at this point, which he's made up some ground recently despite Peter's 140 point win.
So I just want to be very clear here. Who are you choosing?
I'm choosing the Alpha Peter to win Survivor Island.
You're choosing Ken to be voted off. Okay.
Yes. I'm looking forward to Ken coming to the party barge, and he looks like someone who burns easily, so let's get a nice burn.
So I just want to be clear for everybody here. John hasn't gotten a single one of these right, except for the one where he picked me, his brother, to lose. That was the last time he got one right. So he doesn't know anything. He knows when his brother is going to lose, but he doesn't know any of you guys. So Ken, take all of this with a grain of salt, obviously.
Definitely.
All right. Any last thoughts?
Well, it was a hell of a trade deadline. A lot of gas in the group chat, but
Indeed. All right. We will call it there. Thank you all for listening. John, I will see you next week,
Yeah.
where we will cover what I think is going to be a pretty clear playoff picture for the most part. All right,
Hard
guys.
disagree, but have a good night.
Have a good night.